Recording in progress.
Beloved brothers and sisters, Geeia Ariati here. I'm the code to unlock the matrix. And today we are talking into a specific choice point that was offered to the collective, to the 144 on Easter Sunday. And what it means when we miss a choice point, what it means accelerated choice points, what the information is when one chooses to go with these opportunities, and what happens when we don't. And it's not to cause any further pain or suffering, but it is also that when we deny the pain and suffering of not choosing and the detrimental effects that has on not just ourselves but others and the entire collective, that it is an imperative part of the journey. For me, if I had not had spent many times in grief and devastation for the actions that I've made over history through different past life experiences, as well as in this incarnation when I didn't choose, and what has occurred to myself, but ultimately to the entire human race in further fragmentation, frequency, dissension, and that of the effects that sometimes it's not until we really see and ask to see our contribution, to really know our contribution. We get so stuck in ourself or our separate mind that we don't really acknowledge the power of the human being and the tantrums that we have or the points of denial. And I know that it hurts because I denied my path for a long period of time, and I know what that created. I also know the time and the amount of lives that were affected by me not choosing, and the heartbreak that occurred. And I know that every time I don't choose, that's not just me that misses some point of experience. It's the frequency and the consciousness transformation of the entire collective human race. And so the choice point that I'm going to speak to about today was one that was offered in the form of what we might call transcendence. Transcendence being that transcendence was the frequency of possibility that was available on Easter Sunday. We went through a pre-Easter portal with Yeshua and different Christ consciousness energies, but that transcendence didn't necessarily mean you were transcending into Christ consciousness, nor did it mean that you were transcending into a attainment that is perhaps God consciousness or a higher state of mind. It might have meant that you were transcending your sabotaging behaviors, or transcending your control identity, or perhaps you are transcending the aspect of self that continues to play victim. The transcendence opportunity of a pattern of behavior that kept running through the loop of the separate mind was offered, and there was a frequency that was able to be tapped into. Now, the reason this choice point occurred in such a beautiful gift is because these choice points are based on time, collective choosing, planetary alignment, solar flare activity, as well as different cycles of what we might consider past, present, and future that revisit themselves, and historical events that have meant a specific opportunity or portal becomes available. And this portal was one of acceleration, an acceleration portal that allowed for the information of oneself to be transcended into with the support of the ethereal energies, the different guides, the energies that were available in more than what we see to the present eye. And these points, these portals, don't come around very often. Some of them, such as an accelerated transcendence portal, the next one that's available for us on this planet is not until the 2nd of January 2027. And so that's just under 2-year cycle before that exact frequency in the form of ease and grace in transcendence occurs. So those that chose not to use the transcendence energy, those that chose to not allow themselves to solidify in the optimal time or frequency, what happens is that they choose a different pathway. Now, this is not punishment, nor is this wrongness. This is not a bad thing, but it is something that causes a path of challenge, a path of what some might consider the warrior path or the path of Iron Maiden. It's the path of challenge in the form of contrast. It's the path of choosing to meet your separate mind, where you didn't transcend in all of the areas you could have given up in a moment. So what happens is, what you are offered in that moment on Easter Sunday, if you didn't solidify it, if you didn't really anchor it in, then what happens is all of the things that you would have jumped ahead of or quantum leaped out of become the pathway that you walk in a different timeline. You walk this in the form of multiple different ways. You can walk it in the separate minds path or the unified path, but either way, you have to meet every single expression of consciousness, every single identity, every single part of wounding or expression of self that you could have relaxed out of in ease and grace. Now, it's easy for me to say this because I've had many of my own missed points of time. I've had many of my long ways around. I've had many of my own control points where I wasn't willing to give something up. So I repeated it for years. I wasn't willing to see my own destructive behavior. But eventually the human being becomes tiresome of the pain. It sees the opportunities. It knows enough of the light, and the Sacred Heart starts to be stronger than the separate mind. Yet it needs to gather information. And so when you miss an opportunity like this to transcend in what some might call a moment of enlightenment, or a moment of what we're saying is transcendence. It was a transcendence portal. To whatever your portal of connection was, you're still going there. You've chosen it. You will arrive. I promise. You will get there, but the distance and the time that it takes for you to get there will depend on how willing you are to see that you, as the separate mind, are going to choose hard. You, as the separate mind, are going to lie to yourself and others. You, as the separate mind, will point blame. You will be violent. You will be abusive. You, as the separate mind, as the disconnected self, is one that will create evil and malevolence and more deadly sins into the experience, because the separate mind coexists with the sound mind, and we have to see this about ourselves. We have to acknowledge this about what the ego does. It is not there to protect you. And when we hold this idea that it's there to protect us, then we keep attached to it. Yes, it has protected you in the early stages of your life when you had no other tools. Now, it only causes you detrimental effects into your experience. Your ego and your separate mind is not protective. It prevents you from seeing where you are already safe, where you are already connected, where you are already held in God's grace. And so the separate mind needs to be seen for what it is. It needs to be seen for its expressions, its behavior, its victimization, its tantrums, because the only way out of the separate mind is to see it clear as day for what it is, so you can dissolve it and come into the Sacred Heart, the presence and the sound mind to hear. Now this is, for some, might be considered as punishing or further shaming. It's not. It's just objective truth. The truth of being either connected or in separation. The truth of either hearing God or hearing an ego construct, an identity. The truth of hearing and being in love or being in everything else but love. There is no in between. You are either one or the other. Even the tiniest separation through mind is that of separate mind. And that will create more separation in your life and your experience. The connection to God and clarity and truth, it is felt, and it will create more of that for yourself. So this acceleration point, if chosen, you are going through a solidification stage. This solidification stage means listening and stillness and not engaging in what we might say the world, the global perspective, the different interpretations of different community or dynamics, anywhere where you might be pulled in to a separate mind perception. Anywhere that certain conversations have a tendency to get you into a vulnerable state. Anywhere that there are certain beings that might cause you to feel destabilized. This is important for you to stay in a point of no longer engaging, no longer placing any energy or focus there, no longer participating in separate mind or ego constructs or what is opposing to the state that you are solidifying. Whatever the state is that you're currently solidifying, acknowledging where you have those points of vulnerability and making a declaration to yourself that you will no longer participate in anything that will destabilize you from your center of what you are integrating into the wholeness of complete embodiment. And for those of you that were unable to solidify this, recognizing the fact that you A, weren't ready, B, didn't have the conviction, C, felt you needed to prove something, or you just let your mind take you from your truth. The pain of that will allow you to choose greater truth. Denying your pain keeps you in the separate mind story. Denying your hurt of what you've created for yourself continues to feed through distorted perspectives of the separate mind or the ego construct and identity. The more that you choose anger and rage, the more that you choose these victimized thought forms rather than dropping into the grief, the hurt, and the sorrow of what separation really is. Separation hurts. That's why it's called suffering. You have to witness your suffering, and where you're choosing to continue to learn yourself through suffering for it to amend itself and to transform. And so this acceleration period has ceased, and it is out of that cycle, and we are in a new cycle. We are in a new trajectory, and we are in a new offering for the collective to witness themselves within. Yet we are still coming out of the old cycle and this transcendence portal, and we are moving into the next. So there might be a sense of being between the worlds, being between energies, and being unable to fully witness where it is that you're walking, the clarity ahead. And so our next expression of awareness is actually the deconstruction of the frameworks of false light, or what we might call light hierarchical consciousness that keeps us from the shadow of ourself. When we sit in a state of ascension, or we sit in the light masculine or light feminine wounding, what happens is we deny the demon or the satanic part of us behind it. Because wherever there is false light, it is like a shiny mask that sits over the darkness. It sits over that of the control structure that exists behind it. And so this darkness that is behind this bright, shiny light has to emerge, because otherwise one is in a false perception of self. And the false light or ascension narrative is just as demonic and satanic. The focus is on love and light and peace, but you cannot have love and light and peace without acknowledging those aspects of you that are doing the very thing that you're trying to stop or that you have demonized. And so as we are deconstructing these false light narratives, what happens is the frameworks that have been affecting our consciousness and our spirit connection in form are dissolving. And so we could call this a fall from grace. Those that have sat in ascension narratives, when they realize that they're no better than the very energies that they've been counterattacking. When you see that your purity is distorted and you are effectively feeding the same agenda through your distorted perspectives and through your inability to see where your purity is not pure at all, or your love is actually not loving at all, where you have decided that you are a specific ascended expression, but you see that that expression is a hologram illusion to keep you from seeing your darkness. There is a fall from grace. You will fall from your higher dimensional, higher self, and you will hit a point of witnessing all of the ickiness that you've been living out of. All of the ickiness that you've projected onto others or that you have placed within yourself because you didn't want to witness it, you didn't want to meet it, you didn't want to own it. But we cannot deconstruct these false light grids for humanity without the full acknowledgement of our own fall from grace. So the light feminine and the light masculine bypassing techniques are going to be illuminated. They are going to be turned up. Anywhere you play victim or superiority complex, anywhere that there's the imposter syndrome, anywhere you're acting as if you are doing the work, but you're really not, that's going to be highlighted and brought to the forefront. You're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to see that you really weren't doing what you said you were, that you were only feeding further agendas and separation through a one lens perspective of yourself. And as you deconstruct your wounded light masculine and light feminine and start to bring them into more coherence with your darker selves, you allow for not only cultivation of these impurity, but unity in them in connection to yourself. This point of deconstruction of the lighter mutations allows for stabilization. When you sit in the upper systems or the ascended expression of these archetypal expressions, what happens is all of your shadows play out. They hurt you and others, and you don't even realize they are the drivers for the destruction and the chaos in your life. But as you sit on a pedestal in a higher realm, you can't see it. And what happens is disassociative behavior. What happens is reactivity. What happens is anxiety, nervous system responses. You are unable to be grounded, and if you are not grounded, then you're in a point of hierarchical mutation. If you're not present, if you're not with your body, if you're not with your experience, then you're sitting in some distorted lens of yourself. You are not connected and you are not in unity. And so what direction do you tend to default into? Do you go up? Do you go back into the past? Do you project yourself into the future? Where is your spirit? Where is your soul? Is it dancing outside of your body? And if it is, and you've awoken to your true nature, then there's going to be some challenges with the fall from grace because you've awoken to energies that you cannot hold or attain. And based on opening and uncovering things, you get a certain amount of what you might call warnings by those that keep divine justice and order in place on this planet. You're given a certain amount of time to adjust yourself, or what we might call oopsies, where you receive abilities, gifts, and you accidentally start to use them in ways that are not of benefit to you or others. And you uncover these, and you are given training time. You're actually very much protected as you ascend into these galactic or universal expressions, or even higher into realms than dimensions that are beyond the 12th dimension. But if you cannot stabilize these gifts and abilities, whilst you are protected by divine grace and different ethereal support teams or energetic support, your guardians, who are effectively reverse engineering all of the mistakes you're making to the best of their ability, depending on your power, depending on what you have accessed, they can do so much in the support of what you might call having your training wheels on. And then after the training period, if you're not leveling up or moving to that next stage of development, training, mastery, then what happens is they step away and you're given an opportunity to show yourself. So your ethereal support will, what some feel is abandonment, where all of a sudden all of this chaos happens because it hasn't been stabilized. The moment to moment expressions of what is required for you in all that you've learned becomes very messy. Portals get opened, different entities come in, you might receive a lot of psychic attack or chaos, you might even injure yourself or cause yourself a lot of physical harm based on the inability to use the gifts that have been provided to you. Now, many of us go through this experience and we use our magic and our medicine in ways that are harmful to others. And after a period of time, if it is not stabilized, then what happens is what you might consider being stripped of your gifts. Your abilities will be unplugged. You will be taken out of certain dimensional realms, and the access points that you had to higher states or information is deactivated for a period of time. Some might see this as being grounded into their human. Some might see this as being without their intuitive connection, their channels blocked, maybe their guides, they can't hear them any longer. All of this is a byproduct of a being that has accessed themselves but has not chosen to really stabilize and do the work on a human level. And how does this happen? This happens because we haven't met our human being. We haven't met the inner child and integrated the child, and so the child's still without connection to the totality of the human, the fragments of maybe the rebellious teenager or the young adult, those fragmented human selves, these identities of what you've lived in this incarnation prevent the stabilization. Not acknowledging that you have certain behaviors, reactivity. How well do you know you're human? How well do you know your identity and your ego? Do you know that when certain words come up that you act intentionally in a specific way? Do you know that when certain experiences present that you put on this specific mask? Have you got to know your human being? And if you haven't, and you don't know who you are as a human, then you can't know who you are as a spirit, because they are simultaneously in connection with each other. And so these offerings are provided, and then there is help also provided, where different energy teams will do what is necessary for you to see what you need to see. In this process of seeing the human and getting to know your human, getting to know all of your defaults, getting to know how you react, getting to know your sensitivity points, getting to know the truth of who you are and bringing those pieces and parts, starting from birth is helpful. Looking at, from birth, all of the different points of time from your present now moment age, and journaling and placing down, oh, yep, there's somewhere at age 2 that I need to bring back into wholeness. There's somewhere at age 4 that needs to be brought back into wholeness. There's somewhere at age 15 that needs to. That there's important information of who you are as a human being, as a soul in this incarnation. That is your medicine. That is your magic. If your human is not whole, your spirit cannot merge. And so one of the current ways that we are being shown this lack of human recognition or realization is through what we might call the double agent archetype. It's where your human being is playing into some kind of light or even dark expression, right? Your human might be the rebel, or you might be fuck the system. Or your human might be playing into victimization and some form of feeling as though there is an insecurity. But the double agent aspect is that the shadow behind, if you could see it as a split, where you are literally yin and yang, Jekyll and Hyde. But your human is playing out one identity, and your soul or your spirit expression is playing out the other. And This is the direct expression of what you would call a double agent, where your human has the intention of unity, your human has the intention of love, your human has the intention of creating magic, but your spirit, your soul, your shadow has the direct opposing desire. And that's challenging for those that have chosen this double agent archetype, however extreme to however less contrasting, perhaps we'll say, that you must recognize what your human's agenda is in your sacred heart and what your soul or your spirit or your shadow that sits behind the unseen, the ethereal, in the above and the below, what's that agenda? Now, if it's polarizing and if it's contrasting, then you're going to move through some challenging moments of time because you're in direct opposition to yourself. You are your biggest op, not the outside world. And it's like being at war with yourself. Spiritual warfare, where if your direct opposing energy is the very thing that you don't want, then you need to work out how to speak to those aspects of self and bring them onto the same team. Now, not all of you have this double agent energy or archetype. Some of you have a spirit, a soul, and a human that are all on the same page, and that makes it a little easier for you, which is also why it makes it a little confusing when you're around those that don't. You don't understand. It gets confusing and you can get wrapped up into the mutations of what is taking place. And the lesson there is to learn that not everyone wants the same thing. Not all parts of you want the same thing. Some of you might have multiple spirits, and one spirit might be there for the Illuminati agenda, for further control and patriarchal destruction. And one of you might have a spirit that is truly there for bringing heaven on earth and the new earth. So how do you work with these aspects of self, human and ethereally? How do you identify them? The offering of this initiation for the period of time that it is present, which is a 6 to 12 month period of recognizing opposing paths, direct energies that are not on the same team. Is it spirit? Is it ego? What shadows require to be educated, shown the light, reminded? Because all shadows only choose what they choose because they don't know any other way. It is not out of malevolence or evil. It is out of lack of information. When you see that darkness is just where the light has not been shined and you cannot see, when you start to burn a candle, turn the light on, slightly turn it up and take it outside, then it changes. Darkness doesn't choose darkness for any other reason other than it has no information to choose another pathway. The darkness is in survival. The darkness thinks that it is the only way to live. But when given another opportunity to live, it will choose another pathway. So if you see that your ego, your identity, your shadow is just in survival, not protection, survival, very different. One will kill, one will dominate, one will destroy to survive. Not out of protection, but out of life. The lack of life or illumination of information. But when you give true life and illumination, that changes. There's no need to survive because you see life and you choose to be in connection and coherence with it. So during this period, being honest with yourself and your choices up until this point. no more distraction. Those messages that you receive, act on them. Those guided expressions of truth that you know in every cell of your being. If your body is saying, yes, this is the truth, then it is. If you're questioning the guidance, if you're not getting any clarity, then it's your mind, it's your shadow. The truth is undeniable. The message of your divine intuition is unshakable. Your heart knows it, your body knows it. And when you are in truth, even when it's uncomfortable, your being will awaken to that energy. My process of assisting you with this is to ask yourself right now, what is the percentage of separate mind living that I'm doing? From 0 to 100, how much are you in separate mind? Now that might be way more than you even realized. How much does separate mind run your life? Because that's how much separation you're creating on the earth. If you're sitting in 75%, you are contributing 75% separation. War, death, destruction to the world. If you're sitting at 50%, then that's what you're doing. This gauge will allow you to see where you're functioning at in truth. It will allow you to go, that's not what I want to be doing. I desire to create more contribution and unity. And for some of us, like myself, I had to see this. To see that while I chose my mind, my ego, my identity, I was directly creating more death, suffering, and pain, war. All of the things, because I wasn't willing to train my mind and my heart. I wasn't slowing down or listening, or I wasn't making those hard choices and I was justifying some narrative. So until I saw that I was directly creating unconsciousness on the planet by acting from my own unconsciousness, I couldn't change it because I could justify it. But as soon as I saw what that effect had, I stopped. I would stop mid-sentence. I would stop mid-thought. I got very disciplined, very intensely. I would listen, redirect, relentlessly, because I'm not here to add to the agenda. I'm here to provide a new pathway of unity and new earth living. But if I can't live that for myself, I can't lead that in a world. If I can't be unshakable, then I'm not leading anyone. We must lead ourselves, guide ourselves, hear our true expression before we can be of service. Service to other does not open up until you get your percentage over that 50% mark in the form of sound mind or unity, consciousness, true self expression. Whilst your separate mind, ego, or identity is over the 50% mark, you will not walk your path. You cannot serve and you cannot assist another because you have more separation thinking than you have true self or healing. And if you are currently in service and you're still functioning from 55, 60, 70% separate mind, ego, identity, then how much healing are you really offering these people? Or are you further infringing upon them? Because there are many healers that are creating more damage, more inversions, decoding, siphoning than they are supporting. So in this uncomfortability, if you're here to serve and that's your sacred heart's truth, then my invitation is to get to over 50% of sound mind, authentic self, present thinking, so that you can awaken that path of contribution. You can awaken your purpose. You can awaken the gift that you are. But you cannot do it until you're ready to be really honest and make those disciplinary actions upon yourself. No one else can do that for you. This path is one that only you can walk. If you enjoyed this transmission, please like, subscribe, and tag and share with someone that you may feel will receive great insight from this. If you'd like to join our community to receive direct channeling and other transmissions of support for the New Earth transition, as well as different quantum healing experiences, follow our community. It is called Bring the New Earth Tribe, and that subscription is $36 a month. Otherwise, you can directly connect with me for direct channeling sessions, quantum healing, and mentoring support, as well as if you are ready to really step into your soul's path, your soul's mission, your divine expression forward. And I'll say, because you now know, that you need to be sitting at 85% sound mind experience for me to assist you with bringing through your blueprint, your soul's mission, and bringing through this introductory offer, your high ticket offer, and paving out a soul's business plan that is created by your sacred heart so that you can start to stabilize who you are and what you're here for, and share an undeniable gift that is only yours. I love you, I love you, I love you. Have a beautiful, beautiful day, evening.